So in children, we shall start with a statement made by Sir Founder, said one century ago that this was one entity which taxes our resources to the utmost. And this statement still holds true. We have gone away far, but it is very true still now. In the last 100 years or so, we have seen so much of technological innovation in diagnosis and treatment modalities. But in some form or the other, FUO still is troubling our humanity. And we have witnessed a lot of demographic shifts, radical changes in our economies, and new kind of infections are being diagnosed. So we have made, in nutshell, a lot of advancement in serology, biochemistry, radiology. A lot of vaccines have come up, and also a lot of changes in medical training also, which increases our awareness. Right now, we are having a web talk that is one glaring example. So in the last 1 century, we have witnessed an introduction of antibiotics as well as the burning problem of antibiotic resistance now, HIV and other immunocompromising conditions, lot of migration of population from one continent to the other, lot of disparity, like we have very poor countries who cannot afford, and very large amount of infections present like FUO in those countries. And cost of hospital stay is an enormous problem in countries like USA or in expensive hospitals of all the countries. So what is FUO? Before that, we should be very clear that fever should be actually fever. There are conditions like false parental concern. माता पिता को कई बार लगता है कि बच्चा गर्म है, बुखार है, खास तौर पे इन इवनिंग दे माइट बी नोटिंग कि थर्मामीटर लगा के that the fever is there. So these are the conditions which cause false FUO. So in our talk today, we will discuss the actual FUO cases. We will go by the definition, the causes, common causes, what our approach should be in diagnosis, how we should go for treatment, and if time permits, we will discuss three important causes in India. And definitely today, there is no scope of discussing the babies less than 3 months of age. So definition, first of all, was given by Petersdorf and Beeson in 1961. Any illness of more than 3 weeks duration with fever necessarily being above than 1 degree Fahrenheit on several occasions, and still the diagnosis is uncertain despite many investigations, and being 1 week in as inpatient. So this was definition which was continued for nearly 3 decades, and this was for mainly adults. For pediatrics, there is still no great definition, but in 1990, because of the changing environment in the medicine, Durek and Street came out with another classification, which was adopted internationally, of at least 3 outpatient visits or at least 3 days as inpatient, and still not being able to diagnose what is the cause of fever. And the fever is actually there. So this was because this was an era of untreated HIV, consequences of iatrogenic interventions. For example, a lot of invasive procedures were being done now from 1960 onwards. A lot of immunosuppression caused by HIV or the immunosuppressant drugs, which causes the opportunistic infections. So they classified into further 4 subclasses like classical FUO, nosocomial, neutropenic, and HIV associated. So the category 3 and 4, these are necessarily those kids who are immunocompromised by some congenital abnormality or by infections like HIV or by drugs. In classical and nosocomial, these are the two main categories that we mainly encounter in our practice. So what is classical FIO? FO? More than 38 degrees Celsius fever for more than 3 weeks and more than 1 week in hospital stay. That is classically the same definition which was being earlier used. And we see classical FUO in all the settings, in community, in our OPDs and inpatients. Among the major causes, we have infections, cancers, inflammatory conditions, and definitely if we go for close history of medication, family history of any illnesses, travel history, or any animal exposure, we can come to the diagnosis pretty soon. Examination of eyes, oropharynx, temporal artery, skin, nails, and all the body systems, a very careful examination of all the body systems can reveal the diagnosis in many of the patients. And we today have got good imaging facilities, good biopsy facilities, and we should always do Mantoux test and ESR in all such patients because tuberculosis is one of the common problem in our country. So the rule in managing FUO is to observe the patient, investigate and examine him thoroughly, and please, we should avoid any empiric treatments because what we have all seen that sending a blood culture or urine culture is not a part of our working culture. So this is the wrong thing we are doing, that giving antibiotic and not working up the patient. What is the nosocomial or healthcare associated FUO? It is of more than 1 week's duration. It is not more than 3 weeks. It is more than 1 week. And necessarily, this means that the fever was not present or incubating at the time of hospital admissions. That means classically, this is a hospital setting acquired FUO. And because we know that in hospitals, we have a lot of cross infections, we have a lot of invasive procedures, lot of operations are being done, and lot of cases are now presenting as drug fevers, like we are giving some antibiotics or some drugs which are causing the fever, and we are experiencing the fever just because of them. So this is essentially a hospital setting scenario, and we should carefully look for any offending drugs or procedures or any complications of any operations. Like we have commonly heard a patient having persistent fever after laparotomies, and occasionally we have found some collection to the diaphragm or some localized collection which is cause of the fever. In pediatrics, many patients go for peritoneal dialysis. So this is one common example of infection associated with healthcare, which presents like FUO. Now, simple imaging procedures, cultures, or workup of the likely cause can bring out the offending basic reason for this FUO, and the management will depend upon what is the cause of the fever. In immune deficient FUO, again, it is more than 1 week duration only, and these are HIV negative patients. HIV के लिए अलग है. This is a hospital setting scenario or a OPD setting, and infections in these cases are evident only in 50%. The non-infectious illnesses also are causing fever in these patients. Chemotherapy or underlying disease, that has to be investigated. But as I said earlier, the cases like these categories are very rare in our practice, but unless we don't know, we will never ever suspect that this may be also a cause. The examination of skin, perianal region, lungs, IV sites, these are usually the common areas where the infections start from. And there is a definite antimicrobial protocol for FUO in immune deficient people. So we will not go much into detail of the protocols of every type of FUO, but we will briefly outline what we have to go for a basic approach. In HIV related, again, we are not seeing so much of cases now. It is more than 3 weeks for as outpatient visit or more than 1 week for inpatient visit, which HIV positive report. And this is also any type of setting we can get the patient from. He may be coming from home, or we may be seeing a patient in the hospital. And we all know that opportunistic infections start increasing when the patient goes into AIDS defining illnesses. So the knowledge of HIV stage is very important, because if the patient is in non-immunosuppressed category, then we should not think of opportunistic infections first. So history of contact, the sexual contact or the blood products, or IV drug abuse, the examination of the lungs, eyes, mouth, lymph nodes, basic counts, particularly the CD4 counts. If necessary, we have to go for bone marrow also, lung biopsy also, and we have to go for the separate protocol of FUO in HIV patients. Now, these are the four types of FUO which have been mentioned in our literature. We can see that in our classical textbook of Nelson also, and these are the four distinct categories. So we can easily make out which category a patient of FUO falls in. So practical definition that we have seen in our practice, in our scenario, is fever more than 1 week of duration, and still we are not getting any clue by any history, examination or labs. In our experience, by 1 week, we are able to diagnose malaria, we are able to diagnose enteric fever, we are able to diagnose dengue and other illnesses. And these are the cases which are not diagnosed even by 1 week. So we should start thinking that this case well may be a cause of FUO if all these workups are non-conclusive. So what are the main causes of children? This is very important, because unless we know them, we don't suspect them. Infections by and large cause more than 60% of FUO in children. However, non-infectious inflammatory diseases, neoplasms, and other miscellaneous rare causes also account for minority of patients. In 20% of cases, despite all the workup, even in the advanced countries, we are not able to diagnose what is the cause of fever. So among infections, we have enteric fever, tuberculosis, and now we are getting cases of scrub typhus. I think, sir, you will agree that scrub typhus is now an epidemic proportion in India again after the 40s, 50s. And in our northern side, we are getting a lot of cases of scrub typhus in all the forms, and particularly in South India also. And this time is very delicate post monsoon time.
You are right. We are also seeing good number of cases here.
Yes, sir. Among the fungal causes, histoplasmosis, coccidiomycosis, these are all the rare causes in immunosuppressed categories. Viral infections, HIV, hepatitis, and CMV, etc., are causing FUO. Now, importance of knowing this is that if in occasional case a fever comes and the patient is HIV negative, and ultimately we diagnose that the patient is having some this kind of fungal histoplasma or coccidia, then we may label it as immunodeficient FUO category. Malaria, Kala Azar, and chronic amoebiasis, giardiasis, these are the common causes in the endemic regions. Localized infection anywhere, if not detected, is the most common cause of FUO after these infections. And we have all encountered funny cases of dental abscesses continuing in for workup, and later on realizing it was a simple case of dental abscess, or some hidden abscess in the axilla or in the perineum, which was not diagnosed. But we should be very much scared about the hidden infections deep inside, like infective endocarditis, which can play a havoc in the patient's life if we don't diagnose it timely. Sinusitis is again a common cause. Pyelonephritis, these are the infections which are not seen by our eyes or examined by our hands, but we should have a knowledge of this so that we can diagnose them very timely. Beyond the infections, we have all the DNB residents should know that all fevers are not infections. This is a very important thing because every fever does not mean antibiotic. Every fever does not mean infection. So what are the non-infectious causes of inflammation? We all know the entities like rheumatic fever, SLE, JIA. These are the rheumatological causes of causes of uh, fevers. Hodgkin's malignancies like neuroblastoma, leukemia, lymphoma, and these are the common malignancies of childhood, where in the conundrum of the symptoms we can have fever. So we have diagnosed a lot of cases as malignancy, and the cultures and all other things were negative, and as soon as we start treating the malignancy, the fever comes down. So this is a paraneoplastic or the part of the presentation. Non-inflammatory causes, like very rare causes, these are the most commonly we have encountered poisonings or endocrine causes like hyperthyroidism persisting as high body temperature, and neurological damage causing the failure of the sweating mechanism, abnormal sweat gland function, for example in cystic fibrosis patients, post burns, जब सारी skin खराब हो जाती है, dysautonomia syndromes. These are the rare causes of non-inflammatory, but in as a part of DNB theory exam, these are the important clues that you can write in your exam. And these are the classical, uh, very rare pictures of periodic fevers, thrombophlebitis, central fever, diabetes insipidus, which are uh, commonly seen and described now. So periodic fevers, uh, like familial Mediterranean fever, this is a common FUO in the European region. So how do we approach a child with FUO? The First of all, the thing is we have to be very sure, so we have to examine the fever diary of the patient. The temperature should be recorded at least thrice a day, at least 8 hours apart, and parents should be told that what is the definition of fever. In my practice, I have been telling any temperature more than 100°F should be taken as a fever, not be below that. So patients can come with fever diary, and we send the patients home to come back with fever diary if they are stable and not dangerous looking. So pseudo FUO is sometimes a common presentation. Parents आते हैं हमारे पास, वो बोलते हैं my kid is getting fever for last 15 days, and if you carefully examine the history, there is a gap of 5-6 days, and this is actually a case of repeated infections with a healthy gap between. So some time spending is necessary in some cases which present like FUO in our OPD. So these are kind of busy slides. If you need, I can mail it to Mohit Bhai or Nirmal sir, and we can also share this. But the important clues in history are the whether the baby is being cared in the daycare system or the crèche. हमारे यहाँ पे crèche बोलते हैं उसको. What is the ethnicity of the patient? कोई any underlying medical conditions like type 1 diabetes or HIV? Any rural areas में से we can ask any consumption of raw milk, history of immunization, whether any missed immunization is there or not, we should see for BCG scar, any exposure to the animals, farm animals, where we can suspect the brucellosis, any blood transfusion history. Tuberculosis is one thing which is asked in every patient of FUO, like you have any fever patient in your home or any prolonged fever or anybody getting ATT. And in adolescents, now in Indian scenario, we are experiencing this thing, a quite lot of patients who are getting tattoos and engaging in the sexual activity, which is dangerous kind. So we should be very suspicious in adolescent age group about these things. So subtle signs can be very useful in examination. For example, we can have temporal artery, we should always palpate. And if you have reduced palpations, temporal arteritis may be the collagen vascular disease, which is presenting like arteritis, which is presenting like FUO. Examination of eyes for tubercles, examination of thyroid for any enlargement, and examination of heart for any murmurs, skin, nails, hepatosplenomegaly, examination of perineum and lower limbs for any thrombophlebitis, deep vein thrombosis. So by this slide, we mean that it has to be a very careful examination of entire body if we do not get any obvious clue just by looking at the patient. So what are the lab approaches? So we cannot order all the lab algorithms straight away to the given patient. We have to be individual, we have to have an individualized approach. There is no standard process as far as I could search the literature. In a staged manner, we have to go in diagnosing the patients, and the more invasive tests are reserved for those patients who do not get diagnosed for other illnesses and have some serious disease. We can jump to the invasive test right straight away. So what are the initial steps? We go for uh, routine investigations like CBC, CRP, analysis of the urine, culture of the urine, stool, or throat culture. That does not mean that all these tests have to be done in a given patient. We can clinically delineate what can be done in a given patient. Sinus x-rays should be ordered in any patient who comes with a history of इसको तो बार बार खांसी जुकाम लगता रहता है. My kid is getting cold every other month or so. And ultrasound abdomen, if we think that there is no cause, physical sign anywhere, we should definitely order ultrasound abdomen on the first setting, because that can reveal a lot of problems like with genitourinary system or any lymphadenopathy or any other clue which can be helpful to us. So what are the, I'm sorry sir, what are the lab parameters which are indicating the significant causes? Markedly elevated ESR, CRP, ferritin, which is a marker of inflammation, fibrinogen. These are the tests. If they are markedly elevated, that means something dangerous is definitely associated with the patient. Anemia is very common, so we cannot comment upon that. Anemia is a very significant thing. Hypoalbuminemia, otherwise, it is a very significant thing, particularly in a sick child. Raised LDH, uric acid, or total antibody level is another feature. Markedly high TLC or markedly low TLC, both are important in children as a marker of significant infections. Bandemia, more than 20% of immature cells, and marked decrease of the platelet count or elevation of thrombocytes. Like in JIA, we have thrombocytosis. So if a patient comes with prolonged fever and high platelet count, this may be a case of collagen vascular disease or the rheumatological condition like JIA. If these are inconclusive and the patient is still demanding, we can go for secondary investigations like getting the PCRs for rare infections, serology for infections like EBV, cytomegalovirus. We can go for specific whole body MRI examinations, echocardiography if we clinically suspect endocarditis, and specific antibody levels or ASO if the patient looks to be a rheumatic fever patient. Now again, I should re-emphasize here that this is not a necessary list for every patient. These are the secondary investigations for the select patients, and this can be modified according to the patient. But these are all the investigations which should be in our mind. Sometimes we have to go for more invasive or more exhaustive investigation, like for rare diseases, some PCRs, bone marrow, along with bone marrow culture, because this is very important. Bone marrow culture is one thing which can diagnose the undiagnosable enteric fever. This is the most common cause of FUO, and we have diagnosed enteric fever by doing the bone marrow cultures, where all other investigations were waste. Whole body scans by radionuclides are not preferred in children. they are not preferred because of the sheer load of radiation. But in a given patient, in an adolescent with a good body mass, we can go for if the situation demands. Very rarely, when we do not have anything at hand, empirical medication we may have to try in a given case when he is in a situation of life and death. For example, empirical ATT is given when a patient comes dying and we see that TB may be the cause of this kind of chronic illness. So empirically, we have given ATT, and I think everybody will agree that patients have gone home, some of them, after adding ATT. So these are the situations where ATT definitely should be given in a dying patient, but otherwise empirical ATT we should not attempt before diagnosis. Steroids and IVIG. I will discuss, if the time permits, why the steroids and IVIG are getting famous day by day now, because lot of infections or the immunological conditions which present as FUO are treatable by giving IVIG. One of them is Kawasaki disease, which is now in everybody's experience being diagnosed more because more and more are aware about it. So these are the modalities we have to employ in certain situations. Role of radiology. 100 years back, when FUO was first described or discussed, we did not have anything of that. I think we did not have even X-ray as a direct diagnostic modality at that time. But now we have got CT scans, wonderful CT scans, MRIs, 7 Tesla, 10 Tesla MRI machines have come, PET scans, nuclear scans, and the spectrum of missing out of the patients after all these modalities is very minimal now. Though CT scan allows the examination, a rapid assessment of the chest and abdomen or the whole body, and it can pick up various inflammatory lesions, any collections, even malignancies. The whole body MRI is further advanced, that what CT cannot pick up, maybe MRI will be picking it up. And the other advantage is that MRI is non-radiating, but it takes a long duration of time. That is just a minor difference. So CT of sinuses, if the X-ray is inconclusive, we can go for CT of sinuses. And as I discussed earlier, the nuclear scans are not a preferred modality. Still, as a first go, we can go for CT, whole body, or whole body MRI. So what about treatment? Now treatment, as we discussed earlier, has to be very specific according to what the cause we found. So there is no protocol, no literature so far gives us any protocol, but it has to be individualized. We, as far as the infections are concerned, send the cultures, and if you have to start the antibiotic, send the urine culture and blood culture at least before the start of antibiotics. We have to be sure that we give the antibiotics in right dose and duration, because after 5 days, if the patient says, my fever is still not gone, and we what we realize is, oh, I have not given the proper dose, so that is our fault. So along with that, we should be keep on evaluating the patient in every visit if any new finding comes upon. ATT, we have to be very, I think, particular about ATT. We should give ATT only if the patient, empirically, only if the patient is very sick, and in a case who comes as a fever of undiagnosed entity, more than 7 days duration, post monsoon, and sir also said that we are getting cases of scrub typhus. I think doxycycline is one of the safer modalities now for all the age groups. We can try doxycycline, but only after sending a blood culture. So the basic message is treat what the cause we find in the workup of the patient. Otherwise, empirical treatments don't help much. So, sir, if you permit me, I can discuss 3 entities: scrub typhus, Kawasaki, and tuberculosis very rapidly, sir. Sir, I
I
think
think Baljit, you can go on. Right? Still, we have got time, 20 minutes.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very
So,
useful talk which you are delivering here, and
yes, sir. Thank you
for
so
the
much, sir.
DNA students. It was very
Thank you
helpful.
so much, sir. So, scrub typhus, Kawasaki disease, tuberculosis, these are the three entities which are now the hot topics, and each one has got a reason for that. So, first of all, scrub typhus. So, clinical presentation is very vague. It can come like a viral fever, 5-7 days fever, but sometimes patients come maybe 10 days fever, and classical complaints are like headache, myalgia, some cough, which is very non-specific. You can suspect यार इसको तो viral होगा. You can have pulmonary some pneumonia like presentation or hepatomegaly, jaundice or renal dysfunction, but these are the common complications that we get with the scrub typhus. It is diffuse vasculitis that happens in the second week of scrub typhus or end of the first week. And if we do not diagnose it timely or do not treat it timely, it can take the life of patient. Skin manifestation, like we discussed in the beginning, that examination of skin goes a long way in diagnosing FVO. So this is the S-char that we find in cases of FVO, in cases of scrub typhus, but this is not necessarily present in every patient. We may be having no S-char in a patient of in around 50% of patient of scrub, and we are normally hesitant to look at the hidden areas of perineum or the axilla, and these are the areas where usually you will find the S-char. And the finding of S-char is a very good diagnostic clue. So spotted fever can be spotless too. This is the dictum which I found in one of the literature, in Indian literature. So routine lab, you don't find anything specific. Hyponatremia and hypoalbuminemia are the findings, and elevated liver enzymes, particularly towards the end of first week, and they can have a low TLC and low platelet count towards the end of first week. So everybody will agree with me that these are again the non-specific findings we can get in any complicated malaria or even complicated enteric fever. These are the same findings. So specific diagnosis is done by the PCR or serology, and nowadays the serology is readily available, but it has to be taken particularly in a good diagnostic sense. So this antigen is positive, the DNA is positive or antigen is positive in the initial part, like in dengue, and the antibodies start appearing after the 6th day or 5th day. In the classical graph of like dengue, what you see in dengue, same is in the scrub typhus. So lab diagnosis, always remember, scrub typhus is an intracellular organism. It is never going to grow in the culture. So a patient having fever and lab culture being sterile, scrub typhus is a possibility. So PCR and antibodies, these are the two modalities which we can use to diagnose that. And normally the immunoperoxidase and IFA, these are the expensive tests. They are not routinely available for diagnostic use. Enzyme immunoassay is the available test for this test is this entity, but it is positive only after 7 days of illness. So don't order EIA before 7 days of illness. Treatment is dramatic. We have seen cases coming out of ARDS by giving IV doxycycline, and we have it is very it is a very happy situation to send such a child home. But these are not the cases of classical FVO. These are the 7 days sick child. And Nirmal sir, you will agree with me that Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine has uh, started thinking on these lines that FVO can present as life-threatening acute situation also. And in their algorithm of management, the doxycycline has been advocated in the cocktail regimen of a dying patient whenever a patient comes in a shock or extensive septic shock condition. So azithromycin and rifampicin are the alternatives. And fortunately, all the antibiotics are available in India. Even IV preparations are available. Rifampicin is an oral drug. So this was I was talking about the ISCCM module, which writes that in septic shock condition where no clue is found, rickettsial cover has to be given to a patient who is sick and requiring ICU or HDU care. Kawasaki disease. Now, this is the disease in last 10 years, all the Indian pediatricians have been made aware of Kawasaki disease. Those who attend pedicons or those who read the Indian pediatrics or other journals, Kawasaki disease is in their minds. And incidence is unknown, still unknown, because we do not have that robust or solid database. And it is due to small vasculitis and medium vessel vasculitis is there. Fever for around 10 12 days is usually pre-existing before the florid manifestation of vasculitis, and classical conjunctival injection, enlargement of the cervical nodes, strawberry tongue. These are the usual findings in a classical case of Kawasaki. And in a month's time, we may see periungual desquamation in 3 to 4 weeks. Recently, I have treated one such case of Kawasaki, and it was a beautiful recovery. Patient had gone into cardiac arrest, but improved dramatically after giving IVIG. And I am sure Nirmal Hospital has such wonderful stories in n number of patients. And it has cardiovascular complications like coronary artery aneurysms, which start happening at the time when the desquamation starts. And these are the late findings. So don't go for echo in the first week or second week. Go for echo at the fourth week, and then as the cardiologist says. CRP and ESR, they all take time to settle down. Thrombocytosis is there. IVIG is a Amritban, or the life-saving drug of Kawasaki. These are the findings, physical findings that we see, but we should remember that besides Kawasaki, atypical Kawasaki is also described. And in hospitals like Gangaram Hospital, we have had a talk with Dr. Dhiren Gupta. He said we are getting a lot of cases where we are not able to diagnose, and we are giving IVIG as a desperate measure, and we are getting some of the findings of Kawasaki. So we label them as atypical Kawasaki. So all the findings may not be there. Tuberculosis, it's right from the time of MBBS, any prolonged fever means tuberculosis or malignancy in adults, and tuberculosis or malignancy in children, this has been a common teaching for all. And RNTCP, इतना बुरा हाल हो गया है ATT का. Every pediatrician or every medicine, I am sorry to say, 10 years ago, everybody used to have his own algorithm. RNTCP, one of the residents told me, sir, it should be labeled as Rose Naya TB Control Program. We have seen so many guidelines, so many change algorithms that we have done a blunder with tuberculosis treatment, and we are now facing the brunt of that. That is MDR-TB, and MDR-TB is now becoming a very big reason for FUO. And what is the beauty about ATT now, tuberculosis now, is we are able to diagnose the TB very rapidly by using CBNAT. Now it has come up, CBNAT is being used, and we will be, I think, happy to note that Government of India is now launched the CBNAT, which is ultra sensitive CBNAT, which can detect even 6 copies of mycobacterial DNA in 1 ml of sputum or sample. So the sad part of CBNAT is that if you go for ascitic tap or pleural tap or CSF, CBNAT is not that good. Surprisingly, why it should have been good, but it is not giving good results. But sputum or biopsy samples, yes, it is giving wonderful results. FNAC samples, very good results. And tuberculosis, it is a dictum in our country. It can cause anything except pregnancy. So fever is the most common cause of, prolonged fever is one of the most common presentation of TB in our country. So what are the challenges and the future directions about FUO? we should have, I think it is now the time that Indian Academy of Pediatrics comes on with a guideline of FUO, because our scenario is not a scenario of Western countries. We have a stark contrast of very big hospitals and very poor setups. So there should be at least something which comes from IAP or Government of India. Sadly, when I went for giving the blood culture of my father 2 years ago as a case of FUO, they said, "Doctor साहब यहाँ तो culture कोई कराता ही नहीं है." I was so disappointed. I had to take my father to my college. वहाँ पे culture कराया and we had an algorithm. My father got well, and it was a case of resistant UTI. So I mean to say, these are the situations now that we have to think. Every new guideline is coming from IAP every year. So I think FU is also one of the entities on which IAP should think. We should also always think any person who is ill for more than 2 weeks is in a bad psychiatric condition. We should arrange for a psychological help in such a patient, because the distress is on the family or on the patient is too large to bear. And good one of the good initiative by Modi government is the economic support given to the poor patients by including such patients in Ayushman Bharat scheme. This is a wonderful thing they have done for poor patients. It is a very big boon that is going to come up. So take home messages are that more than 60% of the cases of FUO are infections, yes, but there are non-infectious causes also. In more than 20% of cases, we may not be able to find the cause, but only after doing all the list of investigations. We should have a very sharp suspicion about diseases like scrub typhus or Kawasaki disease, which are acute illnesses and which can be life-threatening also. And we should be very judgmental in giving ATT. And we desperately need a policy or guideline at the national level now. So, sir, can I have a two-question quiz from DNB residents?
Sure, you must, yes. After
So,
the talk, we
I
must
will-
have some question answer session.
I would like to ask the residents name of scientists who gave first definition of FUO.
Everyone,
Any?
please, residents should answer this question. नहीं लिखा है भैया किसी ने.
Okay, so it is Peter Dorff in 1961. And can anybody expand what is CBNAT? I'll send a chocolate to Nirmal Hospital who expands it well.
I will give it from your side.
Thank you, sir.
आए तो मैं उसके घर जाके दे के आऊंगा. Home delivery.
Yes, sir, I will send it. Anybody who expands CBNAT. So I will not explain it. Go home and learn about it. What is CBNAT and what is the new CBNAT that is coming up? Because these are the important questions in theory exam, in DNB theory exams, or in Viva exams also. So anybody has written? Yeah, chat is coming up. Yeah, Dr. Zeal. Yeah, he is right. Dr. Moshiran. So chocolate from my side to both of them. So this ends the talk, sir. We can have some discussion if time permits.
Right. I thought it's a great talk, Baljit.
Thank
This
you,
is
sir.
Dr. Agrawal.
Thank you, sir.
Now, few comments. I know